Hi, my name is Stephen Elmore, and I am presenting today on how social media is changing our news media. It took me a while to get ready for this recording just because it was a little bit challenging. So I'm just doing this through Zoom now. So hopefully it all works out. But I've been a reporter at WIU for um, 4 years now, and I'm going into the media field right after graduation. Uh, and I'm going to be a full time meteorologist starting in just a couple weeks here. So, social media plays a big factor of all of news media, and I'm just going to explain today how it's changing our social media. So, social media is being reshaped right now because of our news and vice versa. So, this first article is coming from the Pew Research Center, and our author is going to be um, Monica Anderson from the Pew Research Center. And her article really stood out to me just because of the graphics that she provided for us. So, 64% of adults use Facebook, and about 30% of those use it for their news. 16% of adults use Twitter, but 50% of them use it for news. So, we're seeing a big jump in Twitter becoming a more reliable source for news. And while Facebook is still dominant and has more users, we're seeing that Twitter is being more reliable for news media. So we're going to be talking about how reliability affects accuracy. Reliability is being able to rely on a source and know that everything in the source is true. With the age of social media, we're continuing to see this change and how fast things are moving now that we're not really seeing, accurate stories anymore, and it's being deemed as fake news. And it's just because how fast social media is growing. And a lot of my sources back that up because they believe that reporters are more concerned about getting the story out first than double checking their work in a sense. We talked about how Facebook is dominant and how it's been dominant for a long time, but how is Twitter really changing news coverage? Reporters can now post minute by minute, second by second stories faster than they ever could, and they get to decide who they're really targeting. So when they're posting these stories on the social media, they know who they're going after. They know who they're going to target. And the quicker they get it out there, the more clicks that they get, the more shares that they get. And that just means more and more people are going to find their stories within social media. They no longer have to wait for the nightly newscast. They no longer have to wait for the next day's print. They can just post their stories immediately onto Twitter and Facebook. But Twitter is really changing because of their trending page. You get onto their trending page, and immediately you're thrown into this pool of a whole bunch of different articles about the same story that you wrote about, but people now have the accessibility to click on your story, read it, move on to the next story in just a couple of swipes. So what we're really looking at here is speed versus morals. Um, we're seeing, Twitter move faster and reports and stories being posted faster, but really is the morals um, of accurate reporting still there in our society? Are we seeing just fast stories now, or are we seeing fast stories that are accurate because of how fast social media can move for us? And now we're going to be looking at how social media is really taking effect on our news. Half of kids are being affected, not really being affected, but are a part of our media accounts. And that last slide that we just talked about, that was from Craig Chamberlain, who was from the University of Illinois. So we kind of local there, and he really talked about how politics is playing a factor too as well. But this one is going to be from the Common Sense Media Research Lab, and about half of our kids, 10 to 18, have social media accounts. We're going to continue to see younger generations being exposed to our news. And while Twitter is still a powerhouse, will it ever overtake Facebook is the big question. And posting our negative stories Is that doing us a favor or is it just getting us more clicks? Is really what this next article talks um, about how social media is making an effect on our news. And it's really the biggest effect is that it's transitioning into more of a younger generation. So, in a conclusion, my hypothesis to start this whole project was that social media was benefiting news, um, but after this, I still believe it's supporting news media, but there are a couple of things that we need to change about it. We need to be able to control our fake news because of just how many stories are getting out there, just because they want to be posted quickly and not really double checking our work. Politics and social media is going to be a really dangerous game. We just saw that just a few years ago with the Donald Trump administration. And because he was so involved in politics, obviously being the president and having such an influence on his social media accounts, which ended up leading to the riots at the Capitol. And the basically the wrap all this up, our younger generation is soon going to know social media as their main source for news. Um, is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? That's up for the viewer to decide. But either way, we're continuing to see social media grow, and we're continuing to see news media grow within our social media for the better. Thanks.